Hello everyone, it's Rafael Gutierrez. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about using that one knuckle to punch. Now, before I do, I'm going to tell you my idea of how things work. Everything is a tool. For instance, if you're coming straight in here, hitting with your fingers, it's used in certain areas. If you're doing a fist, a regular fist, hitting with the knuckles, it's used in certain areas. And the one knuckle is going to be used in certain areas. Each one has a reason to be used. But each one, if you are planning to eventually use it, needs to be trained and needs to be trained intelligently. What I mean by that is there are certain things that can end up causing long-term damage. For instance, you have cartilage between the joints which help you have nice movement without any pain. Repetitive trauma, any type of repetitive trauma, even as far as using a lot of power tools, can end up causing damage to that cartilage. And so when you train, make sure you train protecting that cartilage. The other thing is, I have noticed that when I hit my makiwara with the one knuckle, the skin on the tip tends to tear. And so what I use is, I actually, instead of using the straw rope, I tend to cover it with the little towel, which you'll see me do it. Now, first thing I'm going to mention is, you do have to test whatever you do on makiwara just to make sure it's going to work and it's not going to cause you damage. There's a way to start doing it. There's a way that will actually hurt. But I'll deal with that when I show you my makiwara. What I do want to show you is this. I have a straw for a reason. Bones technically are like hollow straws. They are, by the way, 3 times stronger than steel of the same weight in an axial compression, meaning if you're pressing it down this way, it's actually pretty much as strong as, 3 times stronger than steel. If it's at an angle, well, even as steel bends, your bones will bend. Unfortunately, bones don't really bend. If they are bending, they usually break. The only difference is if you're a little kid, you can end up getting a green stick fracture, which you don't want those either. And so you do want to actually make sure things line up. So if we take my hand and we have the bone here called the radius, we can see that putting the straw there, we have a nice line that goes straight through what's called the second metacarpal. You have the first metacarpal, second metacarpal is here, and third metacarpal coming to the middle one. Don't mean to flip anyone off, but so you can actually see the line. The second one, you do also have a line, by the way, and there's a different name for it. Once you start getting the third and fourth, you actually change. Now, some people say, well, you could just use the ulna. And the problem with the ulna is you wouldn't actually do a full rotation. You would actually be getting it here, and it's still doesn't really line up perfect with those 3. That's why certain things are done a certain way. Now, when you actually add a knuckle, pretty much expend the finger, you'll notice again, you have that line. You can do the same thing with this one. Again, you have this line slightly deviated, but most people don't use the other 2. But you actually can find the anatomical structure of stuff. Now, as I do makiwara, I will actually repeat it. Everyone has their way of doing it and has a reason to do it their way. A lot of times when someone tries to show off how to use a makiwara or teach someone how to use a makiwara, they tend to, other people will say, well, that's not the way I was taught, so you're doing it wrong. Well, it's only wrong if you cannot explain why you're doing it a certain way. For instance, the way I'm doing it, I want to preserve my joints for as long as possible. I want to use it to test the technique. I don't care about, well, is someone else going to see it and think, oh, well, that's the right way to do it or wrong way? I want to know that it's right based on the information I have. Most of the time, the information I have is based on clinical anatomy and fractures. And so that's why I do things the way I do it. So I'm going to pause and turn this around so you can see my makiwara. So now I'm on my platform. You can see my makiwara here. And one of the things you'll notice is that I do have 2 2x4s, one big and one back. I do use pine because I do want to have a little bit of a sway, just not as much as one would do. Now, one of the neat things is if you're actually doing makiwara, I usually tell people, when you do it and you're starting, don't even try to get power. Just try to swing, hit, and push into it. Now, you'll notice that if I put all my weight into it, here, there's my foot if you want, you'll notice I don't get much movement. I mean, more if you want to see there. Okay, I'm getting the movement now. So it's not going to move too much with pushing. Now, what I am going to feel is when I do come in here and push into it, I'm going to feel, is my knuckle going in? Is it being pushed in? And is it lined up? And that's why I would sometimes do it tight. If I'm actually hitting hard, if this moves back, if you think about it, when I put all my weight in it, you have that little bit of movement. Well, that's about 200 plus pounds causing the movement there, and I'm going to get that back. So it'd be like all of a sudden being jolted by all your body weight pushing back. Same force goes up in as it goes out. Not really, you lose a little through heat. So when you punch, I actually tell people, once you actually know that you're going to do it, punch and make sure you're not there. So you're actually going to punch past it, and it's going to bounce back. Again, this is actually that soft punch that I tend to use. Now, if I'm using my one finger, I can do it here without having the force that's going to tear my little skin here. And so I can do it here and push, and I don't have that much damage. But if I'm going to actually punch it, with that, I need a little more protection than just rope, and so I use a little towel. Here it is. You got your little towel. I don't know why I'm still wearing the tie, but fine. Now, when I punch, I don't want to I don't want to punch at the end here. I do want to get the force to go through. So when I punch, I'm going to punch, and I'm going to use this here. So I'm just going to punch, and if it were ending, it would go past. But as it's soft, as it gets its maximum, it's going to be pushed back by the 2x4. So what I'm trying to tell you is, when you are doing this, be careful. You can do a lot of damage to yourself. And the reason you may want to use that fist instead of this is the surface area you contact. So in certain points, if you read the Bubishi, you'll notice that some of the points are really small. And so the smaller the hammer you have, the better. Now, I can't use the same amount of power with one finger as I would with the regular punch. But I am going to do two punches. So one of them is going to be here, so you can see what I'm talking about. So if I come and punch here, you'll notice that I do get a little bit more displacement when I punch than when I lean into it. Reason is it's a force that's going in, and you'll notice that it doesn't really do anything to my knuckles. Now, if I go with one finger, yes, I can come in here, I can lean on it, I can push my weight in, and I'll get a little movement. By the way, when I actually hit with one knuckle, you may notice that I don't get that much movement of the board. So as I come here and punch, you do get a little bit of displacement, but not as much as when I lean into it. Actually, I think I may get gotten a little more on that one. And I use a rope so it doesn't tear my skin here. Now, if you're training with this, remember, soft, push, put your weight into it so you actually feel a little, and you get a little displacement. But don't try to hit and stick with that, because all the weight, all the force that went in here is going to come back that way. Again, not all, obviously. You do have some that you're going to lose from the bend. I hope this helps and shows you how you can use this and why you should use a makiwara to test. If you're actually doing this and your knuckles collapsing in here, it pretty much means you're not getting the penetration that you are getting as when you punch. So again, punch. If you're going to punch and stick, you actually want to push into it and do it soft enough so your joints can adapt. If you're actually using it to try to punch, to test the technique, you're going to want to pull away from that technique. So when you hit it, that spring doesn't come back and hurt you. I hope you enjoyed this, and have a nice day.